Repealing Section 230 is insane. And just to be clear, that's like what that's what the Democrats tweeted yesterday. It wasn't just like we want to reform it. We're working on repealing it, which is ultimately what these reform conversations are about. They're about decimating it. That's to me so terrifying because if we repeal Section 230, like all these other conversations will be irrelevant because we will no longer have free expression, user generated content online.
I agree. That's a good one to start with. So for listeners, in a nutshell, and please correct me if I get this wrong, Section 230 basically says that platforms are not legally liable for the content of their users as long as they make a good faith effort to moderate the content. For example, Privacy Guides, we have our own forum. And as long as we make a good faith effort to remove any sort of illegal content, that means that we're not responsible for anything that slips through the cracks. So from our perspective, this seems like a good move. We don't want to be hosting harmful content. So what is the argument to get rid of 230? I'm trying to wrap my head around that one.
There is no argument other than mass censorship. I mean, so let's be clear sort of how this all began. Section 230 is a law that's part of the Communications Decency Act, which passed back in the 90s when the internet was just starting out. And when the internet was starting out, there was this big debate over what the internet should be. Was it going to be like movies? Like, was it going to be like, where there's a rating system on every single piece of content and content has to go through review before it's posted on the internet? Should there be some sort of body that regulates what sort of information you can upload and access? And back then, rightfully so, people who were proponents of the internet were like, no, that's not what the internet's about. The internet is this free place. We want it to be this global I hate the phrase town square, but we want it to be this like global information resource, right? Where anybody anywhere around the world can access information, connect with each other. This is when email was just getting started. Like social media had sort of barely was just kicking off, back then. So this is years before even Facebook launched. When social media started to get traction, obviously they rely so heavily on Section 230. As you mentioned, sites like Reddit couldn't exist. Platforms like Twitter couldn't exist because they rely on hosting user-generated content, which means that the platform, they don't have to review every single piece of content before it gets published. This is also how every single forum exists online, and like even sort of like some email messaging services too function, rely on this landmark internet law that truly protects the free internet. Now, there's been all this nonsense about sort of the internet is harmful for children. Now, let me just be clear. Actually, every single expert that studies this topic is pretty consistent and has come out. Every top expert has said this is a complete moral panic. This is nonsense. Like, actually, there's no evidence at all that social media is harming children. In fact, it helps a lot of their mental health. Like, this is all just sort of media-driven moral panic. It's very similar to what we saw with video games, television, comic books. We see these exact same arguments come up over and over and over again. That has given a lot of people that have wanted to censor the internet, people in the government that don't like what the public is saying, an opportunity to say, ooh, we can sort of use this thing of like protecting children to censor the internet. Because what the government ultimately wants is to control speech online. They don't want you criticizing the government. They don't want journalists out there challenging power, et cetera, especially not the government these days, which is, I would argue, more authoritarian than even a decade ago. So they've decided that Section 230 has become this boogeyman where basically they're like, let's destroy Section 230. That will destroy user-generated content. We'll eliminate free speech. And they claim, oh, we just want to reform it. We want to hold big tech accountable. Why isn't Facebook more accountable for the things that are being said on the platform? First of all, we have accountability. Like you can sue these platforms if they're doing illegal things. You can prosecute these platforms for certain types of harm. Like it's not like it doesn't exist. If Facebook played an active role in, doing something hard, like Facebook has been subject to countless lawsuits. Okay. It's not like you cannot sue Facebook, but as you mentioned, like we want to hold the people responsible for the speech. So if somebody is using, a messaging app, for instance, to mass message people information that, is considered harmful or is defamatory or something, that person who says the speech should be liable for the speech. Like, for instance, we don't go around, making it possible to sue AT&T because you said something over a phone call that made somebody else mad, which, by the way, they wanted to do that. Let's be clear. That's what the media was arguing for back with landline telephones. They were arguing that, landline telephones, people were getting so heated on conversations on telephones. It was making people angry and driving violence in society and harming people's mental health because they'd get really upset on the phone. One guy tried to use it as a defense in his murder case, actually, that he was so angered by this phone call and the media called on telephone companies to be regulated. It's so crazy because the exact same arguments have been used against technology every single time. They argued this about newspapers, they argued this about novels. All of that's to say is none of this is about protecting kids. It's about the government seizing control over online speech.